Hello, everyone, and welcome back to part 2 of Polity Premier League 2025, your one stop destination to solving the most important polity based MCQs before you take the prelims examination in 2025. So, without much delay, let's begin. First question: which of the following statements regarding the election of the VP of India is or are correct? The Vice President is elected by an electoral college consisting of both elected as well as nominated members of the Parliament. Second one, the VP is elected indirectly through a system of first past the post. So, indirectly through first past the post. And the third one, the state legislative assemblies do not have any role in electing the vice president. So the first statement is actually correct. As per Article 66, the Electoral College to elect a VP comprises of all the MPs, members of parliament, be it elected or nominated. And yes, the elections are held indirectly, but sadly, this is incorrect. They are held through a system of proportional representation by means of STV, single transferable vote. 2 is wrong. And number 3 is, of course, correct. The assemblies have no role to play vis-a-vis the elections of the VP. The assemblies do take part in the election of the president and not the vice president. So 1 and 3 are correct. Right answer is B. Moving on to the next question, which one of the following is not an essential qualification for a candidate to become the Vice President of India? So this is Article 66 once again, but this time it is Clause 3 of Article 66. So you must be a citizen. Yes, of course. You must have completed the age of 35 years. Yes. Must be qualified for election as a member of Rajya Sabha. Absolutely correct. However, you must be a member of a political party is incorrect. This means D is the right answer. Next question. Consider the following statements about the VP of India as per the Constitution. So whenever you find this phrase as per the Constitution, the idea is to make sure that the follow-up phrase, whatever line follows up, is clearly mentioned in the Constitution, right? So, as per the Constitution, the VP is the ex officio chairman of the Rajya Sabha. Is this correct? This is actually correct. Under Article 64, under Article 89, the VP is the ex officio chairperson of the Rajya Sabha. The VP discharges the duties of the President during the President's absence, illness, or any other ability or inability. So this is also correct. This is Article 65, where the VP does discharge the functions or duties of the President in his absence. And number 3, the VP continues to function as the chairman of Rajya Sabha even while discharging the duties of the President. This is actually wrong. When the VP acts as the President, then we have the Deputy Chairperson of Rajya Sabha who takes over the role of presiding officer. Just to clarify, the Deputy Chairperson does not become the Vice President. He simply takes over the role of being the presiding officer in the Rajya Sabha, the role which the VP plays. So 3 is wrong, 1 and 2 are right. Right answer is B. Moving on to the next question. Which one of the following correctly describes the process of removing the Vice President of India from office? So this is with respect to the provision of Article 67, Clause B. The VP can be impeached by Parliament in the same manner as the President. This is of course wrong. The removal procedure for the President is quite elaborate compared to the Vice President. The second statement, the VP can be removed by a resolution, okay, fair enough, passed by an effective majority in the Rajya Sabha. This is actually correct. And agreed to by a simple majority in the Lok Sabha. This is also correct. This seems to be the right answer. Still, let's read the other 2 statements. The Vice President cannot be removed before the completion of his or her 5-year term. This is of course wrong. The VP can be removed at any point of time subject to the conditions fulfilled under Article 67, Clause B. And the fourth one, The VP can be removed by a resolution passed by an effective majority. Yes, in the Lok Sabha and agreed to by a simple one in the Rajya Sabha is actually wrong. It is just the opposite, which is correct. Right answer is B. Moving on to the next question. Consider the following statements about the composition of the Council of Ministers in India. The Prime Minister alone decides who will be appointed as a minister without any formal involvement of the President. Is that correct? Yes, of course, the PM alone decides who will be appointed as a minister. Sadly, the second part is where you have the mistake. Without any formal involvement. If you look at Article 75, Clause 1, it's very clear that the Prime Minister and the other Council of Ministers are all appointed by the President. Yes, of course, the other ministers are appointed by the President on the advice of Prime Minister, but it is the President who is formally appointing those ministers. So one is wrong. Second one, the Council of Ministers includes cabinet ministers and ministers of state with independent charge, but excludes ministers of state attached to cabinet ministers. This is actually incorrect. Why? Because the Council of Ministers would include everybody, right from cabinet to MOS independent charge as well as MOS. And number three, all members of the Council of Ministers must be from the Lok Sabha only. This is also wrong. They can be from the Lok Sabha, they can be from the Rajya Sabha, they can be elected, they can be nominated. In fact, they may or may not be even a member of the House. But yes, they need to be a member. They need to become a member within 6 months. Right? Nayak Article 75, Clause 5 or 164, Clause 4 for the states. So this is also wrong. This means how many statements or which of those statements are incorrect? Let's not forget. Right answer is B. Moving on to the next one. Which one of the following best describes the position of the PM of India? The Prime Minister has a fixed 5-year tenure, independent of the Lok Sabha. Of course not, that's not possible. How can the PM have a tenure independent of Lok Sabha? So the PM's tenure depends on the tenure of Lok Sabha. So this is of course wrong. The Prime Minister is the head of the state and enjoys absolute powers. Of course not. The head of state in our country is the President. We follow a parliamentary form of government. Third one, the Prime Minister must enjoy the confidence of the Lok Sabha to remain in office. Yes, that is true. C is actually correct. This is the provision of Article 75, Clause 3, which tells us that if you bring an NCM which gets passed, then the PM would have to resign, or if the government fails the trust vote or a confidence motion, it will have to resign, right? So the PM must enjoy the confidence of the Lok Sabha at all times to remain in office is correct. And D, the Prime Minister's decisions can be overruled by the cabinet collectively at any time. And that is again wrong because all the ministers are enjoying their office just because the PM made the recommendation to the President. They owe their office to the Prime Minister, right? So, of course, D is wrong. Right answer C. Next question. Which of the following statements correctly describes the constitutional doctrines of collective and individual responsibility of the Council of Ministers in India? Collective responsibility. Let's start again. Which of the following statements correctly describes the constitutional doctrines of collective and individual responsibility of the Council of Ministers in India? Collective responsibility means that all ministers stand or fall together and are responsible to the Lok Sabha for all governmental policies and decisions. Absolutely correct. This is the meaning of collective responsibility. Second one, individual responsibility means that each minister is answerable to the Prime Minister. No. Ministers are, of course, answerable to the President and ultimately to the Parliament for the functioning of his or her department, but not to the Parliament. This is actually wrong. And third one, If a minister disagrees with a cabinet decision, he or she must resign or accept the decision. Yes, the decisions of cabinet are binding on all the ministers. If you don't like a decision of the cabinet, of the government, you better resign. So 1 and 3 are right. Right answer is B. Moving on to the next one. Which of the following statements regarding the Attorney General of India is or are correct? Attorney General is appointed by the President of India. Yes, that is true. Article 76 has provisions pertaining to the Attorney General. The Attorney General must be qualified to be appointed as a judge of Supreme Court is also correct. The qualification to be a judge of Supreme Court is what? You have to be a High Court judge for 5 years or more. You can be an advocate in the High Court for 10 years or more, or you can be an eminent or distinguished jurist. Any of these criteria. And if you belong to the family, any of these criteria, and then you can become eligible to be the Supreme Court judge. Anyway, third one. The Attorney General holds office for a fixed 5-year term. This is actually incorrect. There is no fixed tenure for Attorney General. However, the law officer rules, they clarify that, they were amended in 2017, and the amendment was that now we have a tenure for the Attorney General, which is 3 years. But this is under law officer rules, and this tenure we have seen in the case of, say, the former Attorney General, that was K.K. Gopal, that it was increased or extended multiple times. Anyway, so 1 and 2 are right. Right answer is A. Moving on to the next one. Which one of the following best describes the principal role of the Attorney General of India? To serve as the head of the judiciary. To serve as the head of judiciary. Of course, this is wrong. To act as a chief legal advisor to the government of India and represent it in legal matters. This is absolutely correct. That's the function, the task of the Attorney General. To investigate corruption charges. Why would he investigate any kind of corruption charges? And to serve as a legal advisor to the state government is also wrong. So right answer is B. Moving on to the next question. Consider the following statements regarding the decision-making powers of the cabinet committees in India. Cabinet committees take final decisions on all matters on behalf of the Union Cabinet in their respective domains. Yes, this is actually incorrect. When you say final decisions, cabinet committees are not constitutional or statutory bodies. How will they take final decisions on matters? Of course, they only give what? They only give recommendations. So they do not take any final decision. Second one. The decisions of cabinet committees are usually subject to ratification, meaning approval, passage by the cabinet before they are implemented is actually correct. Number 3, the Prime Minister may refer any matter decided by a cabinet committee to the full cabinet for reconsideration is also correct. So here we have to find the correct statement. Right answer is A, 2 and 3 only. Moving on to the next one. Consider the following statements regarding the office of the VP of India. The President and the Vice President administer the oath to each other on assuming office. See, actually, the President does administer oath to the Vice President. That point is correct. However, the Vice President does not administer oath to the President. It is the Chief Justice of India who administers oath to the President. So, 1 is wrong. The President and the VP can resign from their office by submitting their resignation to each other. This is surprisingly correct. You know what? The President and the VP, when they resign, they will address or submit their resignation to each other. So 2 is correct. Number 3, during the period of vacancy in the office of VP, the Chief Justice of India performs the ex officio duties of the Chairman of Rajya Sabha. Of course not. Whenever there is vacancy in the office of VP, the Chief Justice, why would he perform the role of the Chairman of Rajya Sabha? He has no expertise or experience, though they might claim to have any expertise. But sadly, the Constitution does not allow for this. Sadly, 3 is incorrect. So which of the statements is incorrect? Right answer is B, 1 and 3 only. Moving on to the next question, easy, simple, sweet question. Which of the following articles of the Indian Constitution explicitly, clearly deals with the elections of Vice President? So, that is, of course, Article 66. Article 54 deals with the Electoral College of the Indian president, which comprises of the elected MPs, elected MLAs of states, and the states here include the UTs of Delhi and Puducherry. Article 72, of course, is the what kind of power? It is the clemency power of the Indian president. Article 74 is the aid and advice that the Council of Ministers, whatever advice they provide to the president, is actually binding now. In the comment section, you can write which was the Amendment Act which made this advice binding, number one, and which was the Amendment Act which allowed the president to send back the advice once for reconsideration. Anyway, let's move on to the next question. Which of the following statements is or are correct regarding disputes related to the elections of the VP of India? So, all doubts and disputes arising out of or in connection with the election of the VP are decided by the Supreme Court. Absolutely correct. Supreme Court gets to decide all electoral disputes pertaining to elections of the VP and the President, Article 71. No such dispute can be raised once the VP-elect has taken the oath of office. This is actually wrong. Once the VP-elect takes the oath of office, of course, at that point of time, if the disputes are raised, they can be filed. The only condition is that the dispute must be raised within how many days? 30 days from the declaration of the result. That's it. Number three, the Supreme Court's decision in such election disputes is final and cannot be appealed in any court. Yes, Supreme Court is the final court of justice and hence no appeals lie beyond it. So three is correct, right? You can appeal to God maybe in future, but again, in the court of karma, you can be punished, but not in the court of law. Supreme Court is a final court of appeal. Correct statements 1 and 3. B is the right answer. Brings us to the next question. Which of the following statements is or are correct when the VP of India discharges the duties of the President? The VP continues to receive the salary and allowances of the Vice President. Of course not. Whenever the VP is discharging the duties of the President, he or she will receive the benefits and salaries of the President. He enjoys all the privileges and the immunities which have been extended to the President, right? So one is wrong and two becomes correct. Third one, the Constitution mandates a fresh election for the President within 6 months if the remainder of the President's term is more than 1 year. The first part is actually fair, but the second one, if the remainder of the President's term is more than 1 year, this is some kind of condition. There is no such condition. Right? This condition is not required to be fulfilled. So 3 is actually wrong. How many statements are correct? Only one is correct. That is the second one. Right answer is B, 2 only. And the question number 15, I believe. So which one of the following statements best describes the difference between the Council of Ministers and the Cabinet in India? The Council of Ministers includes all the ministers who are in the government, whereas a cabinet includes only those ministers who belong to the major ruling party. This is absolute nonsense. Incorrect. The Council of Ministers is collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha, while the cabinet is responsible to the Rajya Sabha. Why would the cabinet be responsible to Rajya Sabha? The Council of Ministers are responsible to the Lok Sabha, of course, yes. In fact, the entire ministers are also ultimately responsible to the parliament and finally to the people. So B is also wrong. C, the cabinet is a smaller inner ring of the Council of Ministers and typically takes the most important policy decisions. Yes, cabinet is what? A group of the senior most ministers who are actually running the show in the country, who take the most important policy decisions. So C is right. D, the cabinet consists only of ministers of state, while the Council of Ministers includes cabinet ministers as well. No, this is actually again wrong. So this was question number 15. However, we have a small surprise. We'll continue for 5 more questions. So some special questions for our special innocent aspirants who are going to prepare for this year. So let's continue. We have 20 questions today for you. So the next question. Which of the following statements is or are incorrect? Incorrect regarding the size and structure of the Council of Ministers in India. And just to also clarify, guys, whenever you read the question, be patient and always circle the correct or incorrect thing so that you don't get confused in the examination and don't mark the wrong answer. Okay, size and structure. The Prime Minister has the discretion to decide the total number of ministers in the Council of Ministers. This is actually correct. The PM has the discretion. There is no constitutional limit on the maximum size of Council of Ministers. So this extends from the first one. So this one is actually wrong. There is a limit. What's the limit? The limit is 15% of the total strength of the Lok Sabha. And this was done through the 91st Amendment Act of the year 2003. The same thing is applicable for states as well. Now you can write in the comment section what is the provision with respect to Delhi. In Delhi Assembly, is it the same 15% provision or is it something different? And if it is something different, what is the percentage in Delhi? Do let me know. Third one, a Minister of State may either be given independent charge of a department within a ministry or function under a cabinet minister. This is also correct. See, when you appoint somebody as MOS, you can either make him work under the cabinet minister or you can also allocate him some kind of department within the larger cabinet ministry. So 3 is actually correct, 2 is wrong, B is the right answer. Moving on to the next question, which of the following statements regarding the Attorney General of India is or are correct? The Attorney General has the right to speak in both houses of the Parliament. Yes, yes, of course, he does. The Attorney General can vote in Parliament if the matter relates to constitutional amendments. Yes or no? See, Attorney Generals don't have the right to vote. Your voting right comes through membership. In fact, this provision that the Attorney General can speak in the House, take part in proceedings, take part in the committee meetings if they're made a member, it all stems from the Constitution and it extends to all the ministers as well as the Attorney General. Just to clarify, if you are a minister and you are not a member of any house, even you don't get the right to vote. Your voting right in the parliament comes from being a member of the house, not because you are a minister or you are the Attorney General. So 2 is wrong. Third one is, of course, correct. The Attorney General can participate in the proceedings of the parliamentary committee. So 3 is right. 1 and 3, B is the right answer. I would also like you guys to write in the comment section which is the article which provides them with such authority. Please mention the article in the comment section. Moving on to the next one. Which of the following limitations apply to Attorney General of India to preserve the independence of the office? The Attorney General must not advise or hold a brief against the Government of India. Is that correct? Yes, of course. He should not do this. Second one, the Attorney General cannot appear in any court on behalf of private parties. This is nonsense. The Attorney General can, of course, appear in any court on behalf of private parties. It must not be a case against the Government of India, right? Third one, the Attorney General cannot contest elections to any legislature while holding the office. No, this is also wrong. He or she can contest elections to any legislature. So 1 is right, 2 and 3 are wrong. Right answer is A, 1 only. So moving on to the next question. This is a question on cabinet committees. So which of the following statements are correct? They are extra constitutional bodies and find no direct mention in the constitution. Okay, this is actually correct. Cabinet committees are formed under the provisions of Article 77 Clause 3 when the president can make rules for the allocation of business amongst the ministers and for the convenient transaction of business, right? And the cabinet committees do find a mention in these rules, not directly in the constitution. So first one is actually right. Second one, the Prime Minister has the final say in constituting and reorganizing these committees is also correct. PM is the boss. He decides on the membership, the nomenclature, etc. And number 3, all cabinet committees are permanent and cannot be dissolved during the government's tenure. This is wrong. Cabinet committees can be dissolved at any point of time. They can be created. You can establish new committees, etc. So 3 is wrong. So the correct answer is 1 and 2A. And the last question for today. Which one of the following cabinet committees is usually considered the most powerful in terms of making crucial federal decisions in India and is also known as super cabinet? So the largest cabinet committee, which is a cabinet committee on political affairs, C is the right answer. It is also known as a super cabinet. because it comprises of almost half of the cabinet ministers. Okay, so this brings us to an end of our discussion for today. Do let me know in the comment section how you fared. Did you get all correct or you made some mistakes? And if you made some mistakes, please revise those topics selectively. Okay, till then, that's all for me. See you in the next video. Jai Hind.